Hi there everyone, Lars here with another Amphibia review brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing as an adventure is more fun with friends. And if you heard my writer's rant at the beginning of the week, you'll know that I've been going through a kind of cold, so it's still persisting. However, I really wanted to express my thoughts and analysis on the newest episodes of Amphibia. I don't just want to let these ones pass me by because it was amazing. So I've got my tea right here to kind of help me out a little bit, and let's dive on into this. So diving into the very first episode of the batch, Three Armies, this episode was fantastic for addressing the themes of friendship that have been persistent throughout the entire series of Amphibia. Now granted, this focused primarily on overcoming discrimination between the different races, the frogs, the newts, and the toads. And what I loved seeing right here is how Anne, who has been kind of the catalyst for so much change within Amphibia, and a lot of change for good, tries to step in as the hero and solve all of the problems within just like a matter of hours. This is something that, if this were an anime, this would be an issue that would be obviously resolved through the power of friendship. However, Amphibia has been way more intelligent than that throughout its entire runtime. And so what we see right here is that the power of friendship, while indeed very powerful, does not immediately overcome all things. Instead, all of Anne's attempts to try to bridge the gaps and to get the toads, the newts, and the frogs to communicate using actually very good techniques that are used to get people to know each other and express some aspects of themselves, as well as discover their strengths and weaknesses, all of that just falls apart in the face of hundreds of years worth of discrimination. And even though war makes strange bedfellows, that doesn't necessarily mean that allies get along. I mean, just look at the long history of warfare to understand that. And it looks like the alliance is about to fall apart until Anne taps into her calamity powers and expresses her frustration. And what is great right here is her admission that she can't solve all the problems just by simply being a good person or by trying to put them into the right kind of situation. And that's because external forces cannot solve the problems. Only the people who are experiencing the problems can solve them. And this was a great episode to encapsulate everything that we definitely saw about Anne in the first season. Anne had a lot of problems as a friend, and Sprig did not fix those problems. Instead, Sprig helped open her eyes to the problems that she had, and Anne, through her different adventures, had to address those multiple problems and overcome them. Here in this episode, Anne exposes to the newts, the frogs, and the toads what problems they have to face, and it is up to them to fix it. Now then, while they have not overcome the long history of discrimination, they have decided to put that aside and work together. And it's really great that in the follow-up episode, Ms. Kroger says that they will not let the past steal their future. Now, granted, that means that they're fighting against King Andreas and the past that he represents, but it's also a great sentiment to say that we are going to move forward, that the old ways that had kept us separate will now disappear, and we will forge a new future for ourselves, working together. And that was just really fantastic to see. We then come to the beginning of the end. Holy cow. Wow. This episode just had so much Lord of the Rings goodness. I was loving it. As a major fan of Lord of the Rings, as someone who became a nerd because of Lord of the Rings, this episode just spoke to my heart in amazingly beautiful and soul-crushing ways. This episode begins with Marcy and Sasha having a sleepover, and Marcy trying for the umpteenth time to get her friends to watch the entirety of War of the Warlocks, which is a Lord of the Rings knockoff with just all the trappings, and her friends fall asleep. They just don't care. They just don't get it. Plus, it's a very long movie, and I understand that. And Marcy is left to herself to enjoy the show. And I have been there. I have been someone who was the big nerd in the group, who was very much often at odds with everyone else, not necessarily in an antagonistic way, but what I wanted, they didn't want. And that led to a divergence, like what we see here at the beginning of the episode. What this already begins to highlight, though, is very important about Marcy's character and the challenges that she will have to overcome in the finale. And this is that Marcy, like I have said before, was someone who is jealous. Now, not jealous in the sense where she is envious, that she wants to take something from someone else, but rather that there was a life that she wanted to live. There was an ideal that she had in her mind that she desperately wanted, where her best friends loved what she loved and that she could be on an adventure with them. And that life, she wanted it so badly that she was willing to manipulate her friends and make a deal with the devil in order to get what she wanted. Even if in her heart she knew that this was wrong, in her head she's like, I can justify this and I can make it work. And Marcy is a character who showed us all throughout season 2 that she could make anything work until events came to a head and she could no longer control them, where her desire for this perfect nerd life exceeded her own capability. Furthermore, what this episode highlights is just how toxic the relationship was between the three girls, where we had Sasha, who was the manipulator, Anne, who was the one who basically empowered Sasha in all of these things, and who could have been a follower but was constantly put down by Sasha, and therefore constantly kowtowing to her friend and just enabling really bad behavior. Also, she never spoke up when she should have. Marcy was ignored in this particular instance, and Marcy just went along with it, much like Anne did, but weirdly enough, kind of living still her own little fantasy off to the side. All three girls are kind of going in their own direction. They were friends, but they were not really tight-knit, even though everything about their friendship seemed to say that on the outside. But the opening scene already communicates to us right here that they have horrible communication. They all want something different. They don't really care about the other one's interests, and it even tells us that the things that Marcy and Anne remembered about their sleepovers together and how they act as friends, all of it was through rose-tinted lenses, and that all of it was a lie. Their friendship was fractured and toxic long before they arrived on Amphibia. And that just goes to show how conflicted Sasha is about all this, because she now, having gone through her own redemption arc, realizes our friendship was awful. And even if we like each other, is this something that we should even redeem? Can we redeem it? And that's interesting for her to say as someone who went through the redemption process. And actually, I think that's fantastic. Because what that speaks to an individual is that maybe they themselves don't realize when they have been redeemed. And there's just so much nuance to her conversation with Anne. And it shows how Anne has grown up, how she really is the heart of the group now, and really the leader. She has grown into the role that she was always meant to have. So she's willing to take the lead, and she is willing to forgive. She's willing now to admit that she did things wrong, that she needs to see it from Marcy's perspective and try to heal the problem in a way that only these three can. That is really great. And Sasha, for her part, has accepted, I did a whole lot of things wrong, but I'm willing now to be the supportive person and not the one in the lead. Sasha can take the lead, and she does take the lead when it's right, but she also now takes the supporting role when it is right, and it is a healthy support. This is actually portrayed beautifully in the fight against General Yunnan and Lady Olivia, where the girls have to work in sync in order to defeat the Newts. And this calls us back to when Anne and Sasha ditch school and we see them dancing. And it's clear that these two girls are on the same wavelength, but their relationship back in season 1 was obviously shown to be toxic, and Anne was very uncomfortable with the things they were doing. In this fight, that unity is there, and we get to see, by contrast, just how healthy their relationship has become. And it's not just simply the power of friendship, but really the whole relationship that these two have built allows them to bring down two very powerful and capable newts who stand in their way. But all of these revelations, all of this growth, all of this progress is met by the realities that are called out by the core when it comes to Marcy saying, I don't think you ever were friends. The big challenge in the future is going to be if the girls can redeem their friendship. And just like it was shown in the episode The Three Armies, the problems cannot be solved by an outside force, but only by the people who were involved in it. Anne is ready to forgive Marcy. Sasha must forgive Marcy, which is why we see in the promo for the next episode that the fight is going to be between Darcy and Sasha, because Sasha must be the one to now take that step and heal the relationship. And let me just say, this whole scene right here where they are captured and Darcy is gloating over them is just beautifully animated. It is on a whole other level. We haven't seen anything like this since the episode True Colors. It's just so gorgeous. It's so fluid. It's so menacing. They did a perfect job of capturing everything from atmosphere to the dialogue to the fear to the loathing. It's just perfect. And I love how Anne gets out of a very sticky situation by bringing up something that we've been told, but we haven't really, I think, fully appreciated, that no one on Amphibia truly understands the stones. This is interesting right here, because we know that temples were built in order to harness the power of the stones. So the newts, the olms, the frogs, and the toads anciently found out how to harness the power of the gems, but they do not understand the gems, and hence why the olms feared continuous use of them. And we get to see that fear come about again, and it forestalls Darcy in their horrifying plans to murder Anne. And I think that's a really great little subtle detail that now comes about in a very important moment. This is no Deus Ex Machina or weird plot armor that saves Anne. This is something that was set up multiple episodes beforehand that now comes to a head to save Anne at a very crucial moment. This is how you pull this off, folks. Now then, I would be remiss to not mention just how fantastic the battle is right here. I love how they're pulling out all the stops, making, again, all of these Lord of the Ring references right here. And I will get into a much lengthier analysis of the final battle once everything has aired right here. I haven't done a good long battle analysis in a while, and this episode right here, the beginning of the end, delivers a whole lot of great stuff to us right here. We get to see the formations of militaries, of Horde versus Phalanx, artillery, air power, all of these amazing things. We get just really great little moments of heroism, surprises, twists, reveals, such as Wally being saved by the Moss Man at the last minute. And I love how Andreas just jumps down into the middle of this melee and just has a fantastic villainous moment where he's just all like, well, don't stop on my account, and has his own Sauron moment. Now, this is Disney. There's only so much they can get away with on screen, but we can probably surmise that a lot of frogs, toads, and newts died by his blade right here, because that is the scene that they're trying to evoke here when Sauron shows up personally on the battlefield and just lays waste to everyone. And it seems like the battle's now on the edge of a knife. It can go either way. And in this case right here, the villains win the opening bout and open up the portal to Earth. Earth is unprepared. So it's going to be really exciting to see where we go from here. Now, the promo would seem to suggest that Mr. X has already been working with Anne's allies to prepare for a potential invasion. And so whenever the girls do manage to escape, the reason why there's suddenly all of this technology and all of this support there that we see in the promo is because humans haven't been entirely unprepared, but they are not ready for the force that is about to come. this will require the girls to pull out all the stops. And this is where I think we will get to see really just the great, awesome battle will just wage across Los Angeles. And I would say it's probably even going to be waged again back in Amphibia in some form or another before it is all done. And my reason for that is because everything has been set in motion for Leaf's letter to be delivered to King Andreas. This will be really interesting to see how that all unfolds. We get from the promo trailer and also from the poster that this battle is going to have many multiple arcs within it. The next episode is going to just be phenomenal, and I'm so looking forward to it. And hopefully my voice is a whole lot better, so that way I can talk a whole lot more about it and not feel like I'm dying. So, with all of that being said, what advice can we pull out of this as novice writers before I conclude? I think one of the big things right here is that, again, you need to always stick to your themes. Amphibia has stuck to its guns from the beginning. And this is something that a lot of authors have talked about, that whatever you introduce at the beginning of your story, you need to follow through with that atmosphere and with the feeling all the way up to the very end. If it changes, you might lose your audience along the way. And while there are a lot of people who have been complaining about what Season 3 has done to Amphibia, it is undeniable that the heart of Amphibia has remained the same, and it means that these last episodes have just been powerful, especially to me. Another thing is this: if you're going to have a really crazy plot armor moment, it's very easy to just be like, oh, the hero gets away because the hero's got to get away. The hero's got to survive somehow. Maybe they lose a limb, but they still get away. In this case right here, Anne lives and survives a situation that she shouldn't because of elements that have been planted in the story far earlier on to explain that not even the core knows how the magic actually works. They just know how to harness it, and that the fear of losing that magic and also the fear of what that might possibly do to their plans being far bigger than what has already been led on, that all of this means that the core cannot risk killing Anne, while Andreas is gung-ho for it. Again, this goes to show there's a lot of things going on in here. And this means that Anne's desperate gamble paid off because of information that had already been seeded by the creators early on within the story. And again, it also just goes to show that there's a greater mystery unfolding in the background. And again, this is something that really good stories do, where they hold back information even until the very end, so that way they can deliver just a beautiful reveal or a beautiful twist or just a beautiful culmination moment at the very end. Because again, Andreas is being kept in the dark by the core. Andreas was ready to kill Anne, but the core was willing to forego. And that's because the core, I do believe, is still withholding information from the king. There's one last thing that we don't know. So that is my review and my analysis. And if you are looking for more writing advice, please go check out our podcast episodes found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works. We also have writing exercises over our Pinterest page, and we would love for you to check out all of our other sites and sources down in the description below. Thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing, even when it is a painful one. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.
Well, don't stop on my account.